Hi, welcome to my 855 seminar. My topic is measles outbreak and the anti-vaccine movement. So the first reported case of measles was in the 9th century by a Persian doctor. In 1757, a Scottish doctor by the name of Dr. Francis Home showed that measles was an infectious disease and it was a blood-borne disease. In 1912, the US decided that measles would become a notifiable infectious disease. And in 1954, Dr. Thomas C. Peebles and John F. Enders were able to isolate measles from a blood sample of an infected child. And this isolated measles virus would later become the measles vaccine in 1963. In 1978, the CDC decided that it wanted to make its target to eliminate measles by the year 1982 in the US. And in 1981, they already realized that there were 80% fewer cases of measles than the year before. And finally, by 2000, measles was declared an eliminated disease in the US. So recently, there have been outbreaks of measles, which was previously an eradicated vaccine-preventable infectious disease, mostly due to oppositions against vaccines. Vaccine opposition has always existed. The first case was in the 18th century in 1772, and it was by a reverend who said that vaccines were a diabolical operation. There has also been religious opposition to vaccines, mainly because the vaccine originally was derived from abortive fetal tissue cells, and there are several religions that are against abortions, so initially they were against the vaccine as well because of this. Opposition also comes from a distrust in the government, a distrust in the pharmaceutical industry, a lack of perceived need of the vaccine, doubts regarding its safety, and the potential side effects the vaccine can have. So there are a lot of misconceptions linking the preservative in the vaccine, known as thimerosal, is linked to autism spectrum disorder, and that thimerosal causes autism. This was further propagated by Dr. Andrew Wakefield, who was a British doctor and researcher who published an article in The Lancet claiming to prove this link. It was later discovered that he had a conflict of interest and that he was receiving funds by parties to tell him to publish these findings that were not scientifically proven whatsoever, and The Lancet later had to retract the whole article. Vaccine opposition is also currently propagated by online activity and social media such as Twitter and Instagram, and online sources are usually a horizontal spread of media sources. In addition, usually people who have a bias towards a certain belief will search on the internet this belief, and they'll usually only read articles proving their bias. So if someone Googles vaccines and autism, vaccines causing autism, they'll only read the articles that pop up that prove that vaccines cause autism. There's no proof, but these kinds of articles. They won't read the article saying that there is no link whatsoever, there is no scientific proof that vaccines cause autism. And this is also known as an echo chamber also. And also studies have shown that exposure to vaccine-related information often cause vaccine-related behavior. So an article published by Tomny, Vargo, and L. Tukey studied tweets and those that wrote about the anti-vaccine movement, and they studied the geographical location of these tweets and tried to see if there was a corresponding increase in anti-vaccine movement in those areas. And so as we see here on the left, the green line is California. So these are the tweets in California against vaccines. And then we have New York and Pennsylvania. And we can see on the right on this map that those corresponding states are the ones who have the highest density of vaccine refusal. So they proved that what is being spread around on social media, Twitter in this example, has an effect on vaccine behavior and vaccine refusal. So the largest outbreak of measles in the last decade was in Anaheim, California, with a total amount of 667 reported cases for that year. Currently, in 2019, we're already at 314 reported cases of measles, and that's around 60 shy of the total from last year. And last year, there was a total of 17 outbreaks, mostly in New Jersey, New York area. So measles is also known as rubeola virus, and it is a paramyxovirus. It's transmitted through coughing, breathing, and sneezing mostly, also touching items. It's an airborne disease, and it can live up to 2 hours in infected airspace. Up to 90% of individuals who are not immune to measles that come in contact with someone who is infected will develop measles. And infected individuals can pass on the disease anywhere from 4 days before they develop a rash to 4 days after they develop a rash. So signs and symptoms include coughing, runny nose, also known as coryza, conjunctivitis, high fever. 2 to 3 days after the onset of symptoms, an infected individual will develop white spots in their mouth. These are known as Koplik spots. This is this image here. I know they don't look white, but these are what Koplik spots look like in the mouth. And then 3 to 5 days after their symptoms, they'll develop a rash. It's flat and it starts on the face and spreads downward the body. So then it goes down the neck, the shoulders, arms, trunk, and to the legs. And the rash can also eventually become bumpy and elevated and raised. Sometimes after a rash, a fever of 104 degrees Fahrenheit can also develop. So the diagnosis is usually made by presentation and the presence of Koplik spots, the rash, and the history of the development of symptoms. If a doctor is unsure about the rash or the patient is a poor historian and it's unsure about the sequence of the symptoms, you can also do a blood test as well to confirm that someone is infected with measles. And so measles is usually a self-resolving, self-limited disease. However, it can eventually result in death if not monitored properly. So high-risk groups are unvaccinated children and adults. Studies also show that women, highly educated women in higher socioeconomic levels or parents belonging to a higher socioeconomic level will tend to refuse the vaccine the most. In addition, parents and older individuals who are preoccupied about vaccine safety also delay and refuse vaccines. And as I showed you earlier, residents who live in an area of anti-vaccine belief tend to have the highest rates of vaccine refusal. So those are California, Pennsylvania, New York, Massachusetts, and Connecticut, and also in addition, Texas, Illinois, and Washington. So prevention strategies. So it's important that we monitor today what's being said online and on social media accounts, because this is what's propagating misinformation the most and at the fastest rates, because everyone has access to the internet and these social media accounts. So many people have them. So, and it's also important to target geographical areas to see where these beliefs are the most prevalent. There's also computer assistant content analysis that have developed algorithms to detect where anti-vaccine tweets and posts are being made the most, and also algorithms that code and provide summaries of what the content of these anti-vaccine posts are. In the past, they've also developed bots to reply to the username that has posted an anti-vaccine tweet, and this has been proven successful in refuting misconceptions about vaccines linked to autism spectrum disorder. It's also important that pediatricians monitor what the belief system is around the area of their clinic or their patient population. And it's important that they're prepared to have conversations with parents who refuse to vaccinate their children, to provide them with information, pamphlets, to understand why the parents have this belief, how they got to that belief, and to try to work with the parents to foster this trust between the doctor, patient, parent relationship, and to hopefully teach parents that vaccines are safe and that it's really important to vaccinate your children. So case management, vaccinate children. It preserves the herd immunity. It is a self-limiting infection, so there's no real treatment. However, you can give the measles vaccine to anyone who's been exposed to someone who has measles up to 72 hours after exposure. Those who can't receive the vaccine can receive the immunoglobulin. You can also give Tylenol, Advil to help manage the fever, and vitamin A has also proven to minimize symptoms as well. So that's the end of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned a little something about the anti-vaccine movement and measles today. Thank you.